billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. I welcome you to another session of globalization and development. The topic of today's lecture is global flows of migrants in the world. As you know, globalization is all about flows, it is all about liquidity, and it is all about fluidity of societies, cultures, and economies. Now, migrant flows have different forms and different shapes throughout the history and prehistory of human civilization. The topic will cover the migrations, human migrations during the prehistoric times, then during the recorded historic times of human civilizations, and then migrations and immigrant activities during the globalized and postmodern world. Since the emergence of Homo erectus around 2 million, 3 million years ago, the first large human migrations took place from Africa to Europe, to the Central Asian steppes, to the Arabian Peninsula, and to the other parts of the world. Since then, we find that migration has been an important characteristic of human social and political organization. There may be different reasons, different causes of human migration. They can happen due to some invasion, a country, a state invading another country or state. They might come or happen due to the conquest of one country or one region, one territory by another country or state. They might happen due to extensive colonization and colonialism of one country, one state by another state, or they might happen due to the economic reason, as we witness today, immigration or migrant workers moving from one part of the world to another part of the world because of the economic and because of the financial reasons and to improve the quality of life. The earliest migrations in human prehistory were mostly to improve and enhance the sustainability and survival of the human race. People moved out of the African continent in order to explore the new territories, to establish new settlements, and to harvest new lands and graze new pastures. But it is in the history that we find certain very important and everlasting migrations. For example, one can talk about the historic and very well known Aryan migration which took place during the second millennium BC, during the 1700 around 2000 BC. The Aryan tribes from the Central Asian steppes, there were three major waves of Aryans moving out of their region to the rest of the world. One wave moved and came into the Indian subcontinent, the other wave moved and went into the Persian and Iranic plains, and the third one went to the West European and European continent. This was a very major and very significant migration of human tribes from Central Asia, Aryan tribes, because in all these three parts of the world, then the subsequent civilizations emerged through the mixing of the Aryans with the local cultures and local civilizations and local tribes. For example, in Indian subcontinent, the Aryans, they mingled and mixed up with the Dravidians, who were the local residents, inhabitants of subcontinent, and who built great civilization, Indus Valley civilization along the rivers of river Indus, and great cities along the river Indus were established, such as Mohenjo-daro and Harappa. Similarly, in Iran we find the foundation and establishment of great civilization with the intermingling and mixing of the Aryans with the local population. And if we go into the Europe, we find the rise and growth of different tribal principalities and states emerging with the mixing of the Aryans with the local population. The major cause or the major push behind the Aryan migration was the environmental and the survival, evolutionary reason, you can say, that they wanted to explore new grazing fields, they wanted to have more secure supply chains, and they wanted to expand and colonize new regions of the world. So, they moved out of their harsh and tough Central Asian steppes and Mongolian regions down to the Indian subcontinent, to the Persian peninsula, and to the European continent. It is a very significant migration. Then we find wars taking place between the Greeks and the Persians, between the Greeks and the Romans, in which a lot of migrations took place in the western hemisphere of the world. A lot of population shifted, a lot of people killed, a lot of people moved from one part to the another part. The Greeks, under Alexander, they came as far as to the Indian subcontinent, and with their arrival when they Persianized, they Hellenized the Persian world, they Hellenized the Indian world, they established new culture, they established new social system, they established new political organization in these regions of the world. Similarly, we find great Semitic migrations of great prophets. Prophet Abraham, we find then his children Jacob, they migrated, his whole tribe migrated to Egypt. Subsequently, we find a very well known, very famous exodus and migration of the tribe of Israel under the leadership of Prophet Moses to out of Egypt. He liberated and freed them from the domination and exploitative rule of the pharaohs and the local Egyptians. Another important migration which changed and shaped the course of history was the migration of Prophet Muhammad from Mecca to Medina, present day Medina. He left Mecca with one of his companion Abu Bakr Siddiq and went all the way 300 miles up in the north and settled there, established there himself, and propagated and preached the message of God to the mankind. From Medina rose one of the great civilization, one of the great culture, and one of the great learning center of the world, and it spreaded within a century, almost within a century, to the rest to up to India, Persia, Central Asia, and North Africa, and into the Europe. This new Islamic civilization, this new Islamic culture, was expanded and exported to all these regions of the world. So, here you can also see that a migration shaped and played a pivotal role. Similarly, in the life of Moses, you see the migration. In the life of the tribe of Israel, you see the migration from Egypt to Jordan, to the Holy Lands. The migration played a very important role. Similarly, in the life of Indians and Persians, ancient Persians and ancient Indians, the migrations of the Aryans played a very important role. New culture, new metaphysics, new economy, new politics, new institutions were established. For example, the great book of Vedas were written on the banks of the Indus River according to the historical texts by the Aryans, and it was with the mixing of the local, with the mixing of with the local Dravidian culture and Dravidian ideology and Dravidian religion, this new world consciousness appeared in Indian subcontinent. Similarly in Persia, similarly in Arabia. In Arabia we find, and in the Holy Lands we find the growth of several Semitic prophets coming, and finally the Prophet Muhammad came. So, migration in the Polynesian regions, in the Indian Ocean we find, in the Australasian region similarly we find people migrating and tribes establishing, their culture in those parts of the world. So, for survival, for the establishment of new grazing and pasture lands, for exploring new territories, and for survival, the human tribes and human races have been mixing up, migrating and exchanging, with each other, sometime through wars, sometime through invasions, sometime through colonizing the other regions. And now, we see that people move from one part of the world to another part of the world in order to have a better quality of life, in order to have better job opportunities, in order to have more, prosperous and wealthy and satisfied life. The phenomena of modern immigration, if we try to look for its roots and its emergence, we find that the 17th, 18th and 19th century Europe, particularly during and before and during the Industrial Revolution, a lot of European races and groups, ethnic groups, they migrated to modern day United States of America. Then we find another very important source of migrant worker in the history, and that is the famous Atlantic slave trade of the 15th and the 16th century, 16th and 17th century, where the white, traders, the British traders, they would buy slaves from the African markets, from the African continents, and they would, then try to they would sell those slaves to the American markets, to the plantations, huge plantation, huge farms. They would work there, they would cultivate lands, and they will produce, and with that, that slave trade laid the foundation of later day American prosperity. Then we see another wave of migrants, coming from European migrants coming to the American continent. And similarly, we find other, important corridors, you can say, in the world. We can identify certain corridors other than the European to the American corridor. We can find within the Asian region, Russian and Ukrainian corridor, Russia and Kazakhstan, China, from China to India, and from Central Asia to Afghanistan and Pakistan and India. Then we can find two corridors, Bangladesh India corridor, Bangladesh India Burma corridor. Then we find India and Far East, Eastern corridor, Chinese and the Japanese, South Korean, that corridor. We find then immigration from India to Middle East and to the US, lot of Indian migrants, huge number of migrants. Then we find Pakistani migrant workers working in the Middle East, in the Europe, in US, in Australia. So, these are some of the other than the developed countries, immigrants moving from developed European regions to the prosperous North American regions. These are also the regions, the south, where you can say people moving from one developing country to another developing country. Moving from India to UAE. UAE is also a developing country, it is not a developed, and moving from India to Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Similarly, from Pakistan, moving to Malaysia, moving to Indonesia or Singapore in order to have better economic opportunities, in order to have a better quality of life, in order to have better educational and career opportunities for children, and in order to have better growth and secure life. No immigrant or immigration can be due to different push factors happening today, as I have referred earlier, that there may be economic reasons, that in the home country, in the host country, there are a person is qualified, he is skilled, he has all the abilities, but he is unable to find a job matching his qualification or matching his skill or matching his ability. So, he migrates to either a developed nation or developed state, or he migrates to a developing country which can utilize and which can use the skills and the qualifications of a trained professional. You see, IT professionals, doctors, engineers, scientists, physicists, mathematicians, they have no use in underdeveloped and developing, poor countries like Afghanistan, like Iran, like Pakistan, like India, who are mired and lost in their colonial and um, their imperialistic histories and backgrounds, and who have not allowed their citizens and their people to grow fully and explore their potential. So, what happens that people are educated, trained into high professions, and then they leave their host country, their home country, they go to Europe, they serve there as doctor, they serve there as engineer, they serve there as IT professionals, they add value to the Western and to the North American economies, while their own countries they suffer. They remain backward, they remain poor, they remain low in development, their human and their infrastructure indexes are showing a downward curve, slide. So, in today's world, movement from one place to another place has assumed a new significance. It has become a borderless movement, it has become an alienated movement, it has become a faceless, formless movement. You are part of a global, liquid and fluid society, you have no home, you have no identity, you have no relationality, you have no existence, social existence, definite social existence, which can define and shape your personality. But your identity or your reality or your significance is established by the quantum of value you can add to the economic machine of the global world, globalized world. So, you become wherever your identity is shaped through your movement. You are moving from one part to another part, from one country to another country, in order to have a better quality of, in order to have more money, in order to have more dollars. So, the movement and the immigration from one part to another part is has become a dollarized movement. It is a dollarization of the human skill, dollarization of human abilities, dollarization of human qualification, dollarization of human ingenuity, creativity. The countries are the states of the north, developed north, global north, they attract the best minds from Asia, from Pakistan, from India, from Malaysia, from Indonesia, from other developing, from Afghanistan, and they Iran, they go to North America, they go to Western Europe, they serve there, they contribute there, they invent and they create there, while their own countries are deprived of their genius and their creative potential. All this is happening because of the global political economy. Those economies, as I have proposed a thesis of master and slave economies in my earlier lectures, you will see that those economies who are master economies, who are service and information oriented economies, who are on the cutting edge of innovation and technological development, they have a dominant role. They have a dominant role in the global political economy. Similarly, there are other states which are the slave states, they serve these economies. Their manpower, their raw material, their infrastructure, their land resources, their forest and their other production and manufacture sectors are trimmed and acclimatized according to the needs and requirements of the Northern American and West European and other advanced economies, Japan, etc., etc. While the global south is serving, providing them labor. And look at the American Mexican corridor, another very important immigration route of the world. Millions of people, millions of Latinos and Spanish people have migrated, and they make a backbone, I would say, of the American labor market of the global economy. So, millions of Mexicans have migrated, and even still today millions are waiting. Their fate is put on hold by President Donald Trump through DACA. He has delayed the immigration and legalization of the migrant workers from Latin American continent and from some other countries of the world, from Asian and African countries. He has put them on hold because they got cheap labor. The US gets a cheap labor because of the nature of the global economic, political economics, because most of the production and manufacturing hubs have been outsourced from West European and American continent to the Chinese, and Chinese already have a lot of people, a lot of population, cheap labor, low cost labor. So, in order to run their offices and their economic machine, the Americans, they import migrant workers, professionals, doctors, engineers, scientists, mathematicians, chemists, economists, trained people, and they fit into the service economy of the North America or Western Europe, and they add value. They become part of this, you can say, grand global chakra of economic productivity, economic output. Similarly, you find a lot of people moving to this far eastern corridor, Indonesia, Malaysia, they are growing economies, very rapidly developing economies, moving into the knowledge and information age. So, people from India, people from Pakistan, again from Afghanistan, the slave economies, they provide manpower and labor to these parts of the world, and people moving from Pakistan, India for job and employment and better opportunities to Japan, to South Korea, and now to China. China has also become a labor market for the South Asian and African countries, slave economies, serving the objectives and goals and strategic purposes of the Chinese labor market. People from these parts of the world now, they work on a much lower rate than the local Chinese, and Chinese have started moving from a middle and advanced range industrial and technological complex to the service oriented and advanced innovative and advanced sensitive technologies like the Americans. Rapidly they are moving. So, you see a global competition going on between different pockets, certain very important countries like China, Brazil, India, Saudi Arabia, Middle East, UAE, North America, Western Europe, all these continents, and there developed, trained and well certified professionals are highly valued, and countries of the periphery of the south of the, as I told you, of the slave economies, they supply manpower, trained manpower, skilled manpower. So, in this way the global migrant flows are kept at a steady pace, and you will find data by the United Nations Development Organization, and you will find data from the International Labour Organization. You will find global data, you will find global breakups, regional breakups. Well, this is the South Asian region and this has this much potential, these kinds of people are supplied by this region, this is the Far Eastern region, this is the Chinese and the Japanese region, these kind of industries are operating and manufacturing in this region, and these kind of people are economic and technical and engineering professionals are required. This is the Middle Eastern and West Asian region, this is the North African and Central African regions. I mean, look at Africa. Africa is a great story of tragedies and exploitation, first by the West European colonizers, colonial masters, and the American slave masters, slave traders, and now the African countries are being exploited and oppressed by the Chinese overlords. Their lands, and their economic resources are being purchased by the Chinese. So, today you will find that you live in a world which is highly competitive, which is highly amorphous, which is shapeless, formless, and the only valuable skill you have is your ability to survive in this rough and ruthless global competitive environment. If you cannot compete and if you cannot sustain your ability to fight and stand up to the pushes and pulls of the global economy, you cannot exist honorably. It is very difficult, it has become very difficult because of the liberalization and because of the deregulation of the global economic system and because of the interdependence. You try to understand that the slave economies are dependent on the master economies, and for the last 40 years, particularly for the last after 9/11, the world economies have, global economies, the regional economies have been shaped, trimmed and transformed in such a way that they serve the purposes and they serve the objectives of the global north, of the advanced societies and advanced economies. So, when you have advanced economies, then what will happen? You will have more power, quantum of power in the global affairs, in the global governance. Then you will have your culture dominating the rest of the world. So, you see that the so called global culture is nothing but Americanizing and westernizing culture. American and western forms and genres of music and entertainment and film and drama, characters of hero and villain, they are promoted and they are sold throughout the world. Then they are copied by the Bollywood and then they are copied by the Lollywood in Pakistan. If you analyze one Hollywood movie, then you take it to the Bollywood, you will find a similar, a simulation taking place there. And then you go on and analyze a Pakistani movie, you will find a simulation, a similar reproduction going on there. What is that? That is the control of knowledge that is the control of information, that is the control of ideas and opinions by the dominant economies through their culture war machines, through their political and cultural ideologies. They then sell the idea of liberty, they sell the idea of liberal democracy, they sell the idea of human rights, they sell the idea of empowerment, they sell the idea of equality, gender equality, and all this this westernizing and Americanizing global culture, this formless, shapeless, competitive hegemon is what it is doing, that it is rotting change in the traditional worldviews, in the traditional cultures of India, traditional culture of Pakistan and Afghanistan and Persia, Iran, traditional culture of Middle East, of North Africa, of Latin America. Everywhere you find a direct threat and challenge posed to the traditional worldviews, particularly to the religious worldviews of the world, because of the competitive nature. And when you talk of competition, you talk of self-interest. The only moral principle valid under all circumstances in a competitive global philosophy is to protect and promote and enhance your self-interest. And when you protect and promote and enhance your self-interest, when you protect and promote a laissez-faire economy, what you are legitimizing, what you are legitimating, what you are legalizing is domination, is a merciless survival of the fittest, existence of the so-called economically more powerful, and the growth and spread of materialistic and atheistic cultural practices and values. The more money, the more resources, the more control of economic cake you have, the more respectable, the more honorable, the more worthy, the more likable, the more preferable, the more followable you will become. But if you are poor and hungry, and that if you are living a simple life with no resources or little resources, or that your resources are being oppressed and exploited by some cunning and clever trader, businessman, investor, you are the owner of the land, but here comes a foreign investor. He exploits and he oppresses your land, he utilizes it, and what he is doing? He is damaging, he is reducing the farmland, and at the same time he is creating pollution to the adding pollution to the environment, and in the name of development, and at the same time he is destroying the productivity and creativity of the local people. Why? Because he has dollar, because he has money. Globalized world is nothing but a dollarized world. This is the simple proposition. Globalized world is nothing but the dollar. Global migrant networks are nothing but the dollarized networks of human labor. Human economic relationship, social relationship, psychological and emotional relationship, political relationship, religious relationship. Even religion is branded and marketed in the global political economy. You will find mullahs in Pakistan, you will find pandits and gurus in India, selling religion and spirituality, packaging and branding peace of heart and peace of mind, and selling it on the internet and selling it on the information and media outlets. So, dollarization along with the mediaization of the reality, media, everything is mediaized. Which information is to be given to the people for consumption and which is to be held back. You just analyze one channel, one international channel, one local channel, and you will find how their interests are overlapping. in discussing the political, in discussing the economic, and in discussing the religious issues. And then you will see how they pick and choose, and how they shape the cognitive and the mental structure of the population, and how they bring them together through their ideas, and through their discussions, through their panels. They shape, they transform, they change, they transmutate, they transform their populations to meet the goals and objectives of the local masters, and who those masters, those local masters of the slave economies, they then serve the purposes and goals and objectives of their global masters. Because leaderships of these poor and developing countries, underdeveloped countries, these countries whose economies are totally dependent, who are totally, these are oxymoron economies. They have no direction, they have no ingenuity, no creativity, no innovation. They are just simply places of consumptions of Western and Chinese and American goods and products, and they are just simply the beggars asking for more money, asking for more aid, and they spend that money on lavish lifestyles, on corruption, on building useless infrastructure which is of no use. Hardly a penny goes into developing an industrial or technological advantageous activity, and making the developing and the underdeveloped societies more honorable, more equitable, more just, and more honest. Every aid from the Western and from the global economic institutions to the underdeveloped and to the slave economies breed more corruption, breed more inequality, breed more competition, breed more materialization, breed more atheism, breed more vulgarization of the society. So, you can see the positive side of global flow of migrants and immigrants, and you can see the negative side of global migration and immigration. People moving from one part, of people leaving their countries for economic reasons. It can be temporary, or it can be for a shorter period of time, for and it can be permanent. People are going for a permanent residence there. They can immigrate with an E. Then we have the problem of refugees. Then we have the problem of refugees in the world. They are the politically victimized people, and caused because of the wars. So we in Pakistan have a lot of refugees, more than 3 million refugees. They are the casualty of the of the Cold War during from 1979 to 1989, and then we have the casualty of the world war on terror from 2001, 9/11, after 9/11 to today. A whole nation, a whole race, a whole country, a state have been devastated, and it has become a battleground of global powers fighting for their domination, nothing else. Innocent people have been bulldozed and genocided. Similarly, in the Middle East, in Syria, in Iraq, millions have died and have become refugees. Look at the Syrian refugees, homeless refugees. That is another issue of immigration. And now Europe is not letting them in. The Syrian refugees, they are dying, they are suffering on the borderlands of Europe. So, that is it. You can analyze. There are the positive dimensions, there are the negative. There can be push and pulls. There are certain things can push a person to move. There may be lack of freedom, there may be religious persecution in a state, in a society, which may cause a person to leave that place, that state, to a more secure and more free place in America, in Europe, or for better economic opportunity. But all in all, this phenomena of global flow of migrants from one part of the country, from the developing slave economies to the master and developed economies, is primarily economic in nature. It is a dollarization of economy which makes the people to move from one part of the world, and it is hardly now other factors playing role, except in the case of United States of America, where America is still trying to dominate the world through military and physical power. Rest of the world, it is for economic self-interest that people move from. So, you must look into these factors and how they are shaping our world and our worldview. That is all for today. Thank you very much.